I have to make sure that this is muted and this is muted, because if it's not, oops, unmute. No, mute. There we go. Okay. Everybody, hello. Let me know if you can hear me and I can see us. So that's good. I never know when it's live officially. So I'm sorry if it's like always the most awkward intro I've ever given in my life. Everybody, hello. Let me know if you can hear me.
We have a little bit of a lag, and
I can see us,
yeah,
so that's good. I never know when it's live officially, so I'm sorry if it's like always. Vinitha, do you have your volume on? Given in my life.
From me.
Yeah, turn that all the way down, or else we're gonna have the lag that goes through, and then we're gonna hear ourselves say the same thing again.
I have my YouTube link on, so I don't know if it's coming from my computer.
That's okay. I have it too to make sure, but yeah, that'll happen. Okay, yay. Welcome everybody. I'm so excited to hang out with you this morning. I'm Vinitha, who is just an incredible person and human and has the cutest dog in the whole world, but also is a great talent. And she's going to be playing with us with Procreate. So I am just here as a facilitator. I will be happy to answer. I will ask her questions. If you have a general question, I'm happy to blurt. If you want me to be quiet, just say, Peggy, I'm not here for you. And I'll be like, girl, I get you. It's fine. But otherwise, I'm going to turn this over to Vinitha and let her give you a proper introduction of herself. And if you need anything, I'm just right here.
Yay. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for showing up. I'm really excited to do this. I think it's going to be fun. So if you don't know me, I'm Vinitha. I'm an illustrator and a lettering artist and a top teacher on Skillshare. So that's me in a nutshell. I live in Oman. And for today's session, I thought I'd teach you how I make floral doodles on Procreate. So this is something I just discovered by chance because I'm sure like a lot of you have also gone through this, these times when you really want to create, you have the iPad in front of you, but you don't know what to do. So I've had many of these occasions myself. And at one point I thought, let me just make some flowers randomly on a canvas. And that's how it began. So that's my go-to activity now when I really want to create, but I'm either overwhelmed with ideas or I have no ideas on what to create. I just open a blank canvas and start doodling flowers. So I thought this would be good for you too, to have a backup, activity to fall back on. So yeah, that's what we're going to do today. I actually have a resource. If you can check the description, you'll find a library that I've made, like a reference library that you can use to, get ideas on what flowers to draw. I mean, you can keep building on this reference library if you, if as you get more into this. But for now, you can use this and figure out what flowers you want to draw. So usually when I do a floral composition of any kind, I include some flowers, some leaves, and some fillers. So that's what I put in this reference library, a bunch of simple flowers that you can pick from, simple leaves, and a bunch of filler elements. So we'll just pick a few out of that, and you can join and draw along with me. If you have your iPads with you, if you don't have an iPad, you can use a sketchbook, a pencil, whatever is around, and join along. It's going to be a lot of fun if you do join along, but if somehow you can't, you can just watch me as well. So shall we? I want to switch the camera so you can see my iPad. Yep, can you see it? I'm guessing you can see it.
Oh, and
Awesome.
just so you know, I will say some things, but actually, you know what I'll do is I'll join with my phone because for whatever reason, when things are like it won't let me spotlight your screen unless there's a third camera. I know you guys are going to say to pin it, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You're going to see me every time I talk. So, so I'm going to join in with my phone and that way I'll be able to actually pin her screen and not make it come on me every time that I talk. But yes, I can see your screen perfectly.
Awesome. Weird workarounds that we all have to come up with. I'm glad you've done this so many times, so you know what works. Right. So I'm gonna pull up Procreate. And so this is what the resource library that I have linked in the description box looks like. So there's a bunch of flowers here, a bunch of leaves, and a bunch of buds or filler elements. So typically I do this with maybe 1 to 2 flowers, 1 leaf, and 1 or 2 buds. You can do more or less, that's totally fine, but I feel like this gives a good balance, a good hierarchy. And also, the whole reason behind doing this is because you want your brain to rest. You don't want to think too much as you're doing this. You want to sort of meditate and relax while doodling. So, which is why I pre-select my elements just to relieve my brain of, that activity and just completely get lost in doodling. So yeah, you can either follow along with me with using the same flowers that I'm using or completely different ones. You can pick from these or just come up with your own, that's fine. So I think I'm going to keep it very simple today because we have limited time. I usually don't time myself when I do these. So I'm thinking I will use this flower and this flower. Okay, these 2 flowers. Go with this nice and wavy leaf over here. And for the bud, I think I'm going to go with this one. This one. I might throw in a couple of these squiggles, if I feel I need to. So that is the plan. So yes, I'm going to open up a new canvas. My go-to is a 10-inch by 10-inch square. If you have a go-to size, you can go ahead and use that. All right, and I have a blue color selected. I like to sketch with blue. And so first, I like to do an under sketch just to, again, take away the pressure of, figuring out what goes where and stuff. Just the sketch helps me like loosen up. So that's what I'm going to do first. So for sketching, I'm using the vintage texture pack. Peggy's vintage texture Procreate kit. I'm using the brushes from that. So there's this brush called the pigeon pencil, which is great for sketching. So that's what I'm going to use. And I like to do this doodling. When I do it, I like to contain it in a shape. So a square, a rectangle, you can be even ambitious and go for circles or crazy shapes. There's lots of possibilities. So you don't have to do this, but I like to contain it within a shape. So I'm going to first draw a square just to contain my doodles. So just freehanding it like that, pressing and holding. And then we have a square. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm just going to just rotate it so that it's aligned with the canvas. All right. So we have a square. All right. Now I'm going to open a new layer to do the rest of the sketch. I'm going to reduce the opacity of this square layer because I just want it to be there as a guide. And then on this new layer that I just created, I'll start drawing the flowers. So you can also actually go into the canvas tab and open reference and, import this reference library if you want to keep it next to you. If you want to see what flowers you're drawing, you can keep this as a reference next to you. So I said I'll be using this one and this one, right? Typically like to start from the upper left corner. It doesn't have to be right at the corner. You can start, I mean, you can of course start from wherever you want, but I go from here usually. So I'll just start laying down the flowers. Okay, and we have a nice triangular shape. If you look at the overall, shape of this flower, it's sort of like a triangle. So it fits nicely within these corners. So I'm going to start with this corner here and just go like that. Okay, we're just going to be very rough and free with it. It's okay. This is just a sketch. Okay, so that's the top part, and then I'm going to draw some petals here, just like that. Not trying to make the petals perfect at all. It's has more personality when it's all wiggly and all over the place. So there's one, and then I'll draw a stem in whatever direction I feel like drawing it. So it could be this. Let's say it's like this. I mean, the first flower is always, there's a blank page and you don't know what to do. You don't know where to place it. But once you get the first flower in, you can usually, get into the flow. All right. So we're going to do this leaf. So I'm going to just place this leaf maybe somewhere around here. All right. So then maybe another leaf can come in here like this. Wherever possible, I like to bring it all the way up to the square because we're going to not draw the square in our final illustration, but we can still see the shape of the square if we bring our elements all the way up to the square. Right, so that's a leaf. And there is some space here where we can add some fillers. So just like that. Maybe even here, put one. All right. Now let's try and put a flower here. Okay. So I'm going to put the second kind of flower that I have. And let's see. Maybe something like this. All right. So I'm doing a very large scale version because I want to fill up the square relatively fast so that, you can see all of the steps and you're not seeing the same steps being repeated throughout. But, feel free to make them smaller if you want to do this for some more time. There's that flower nicely. I like to fit these shapes snugly next to each other. So it looks like a nice, lace sort of a thing in the end. So let's give this a stem. Okay, bringing it all the way to the border. And then I'm going to draw a leaf here. And I think we can maybe do another flower here, connected from this, because we have some space here. So maybe something like this.
One of the things that a couple people have said is that they always end up starting too small. And so they are surprised at how large you start. And I, as well, would love to hear your thoughts because I also start larger, but I think that it's great to hear perspective.
I think I always end up starting too small too. I'm actually
Really?
wondering started too large. I told myself that I have to keep it a little large this time so that, we get time to finish it. So yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, it feels a little weird to me, but yeah, we'll see how it goes.
I think it's
Uh,
looking awesome. I know what you mean, but I don't know. Something about Procreate makes me go way too large all the time. And then I just end up shrinking something. But just a hot tip, if you're new to Procreate, don't shrink something more than twice max, because it will start to like pixelate and blur, and nobody wants that.
yeah. Also, I think one of the reasons why this happens in Procreate, that you start too small, is because I at least tend to zoom in and then start. So you don't have a perspective of the bigger picture. And then when you zoom out, everything looks too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I feel like I need some more space here, so I'm gonna remove and reposition this stem. Not liking how it's looking. So I'm just gonna get rid of this leaf and see where else I can put this. Let's see, maybe here, just like that. And then this flower can either be connected to this one, because we don't care about science or biology at this point. We can have multiple types of flowers come out of the same plant if we want. So, but I like the space here, so I'm gonna just do a little stem like that, and then maybe do another leaf here. And we can have a leaf like this. Maybe another one could go and get in this space. So the thing about these like wiggly leaves like this is that you can fit them around in, different shapes and sizes. So that's helpful versus something like this, which is a little bit more rigid. And, if you want all your leaves to look cohesive, you have to follow a certain shape. So there's different levels of complexities to this. Yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna put another flower over here. Maybe this time it can go like this. So yeah, if you're wondering, how these flowers are just like just showing up, it will come with practice. I make this particular flower, actually both these flowers, quite frequently in my compositions, in my lettering compositions too. So, which is why I'm able to just wing it. But if you're struggling with getting the shape, I would always recommend that you draw the, basic shape first. So sort of like a cup, like that. Sorry. So just do sort of a guide layer where you draw the basic shape, and then open a new layer, and then you can do the, scalloped edges if you feel it's too much to jump right into this. Right. Let's see.
That's really helpful, Vinitha. I think that's a lot of what a lot of us struggle with, is like seeing something that looks really, really intricate, but it's a lot more simple if we break it down into those little easy shapes.
Yeah, in the end, like breaking it down is what, helps you to achieve these intricacies and make them look the way we want them to look. So, yeah.
Okay,
So
here's a question for you. When you work in Procreate, do you always do these sketch drafts first, or do you ever dive in and just go with like what I guess I'll consider your finished design or finished brush?
Right. I almost always start with a sketch because for me, it feels too precious when I'm using, the final brush and the final colors. I used to do that initially because that's what you see, right? So when I first got Procreate, that's what you see other artists doing. They probably already have done a sketch, but you don't necessarily see the process or see the sketch. So it feels like everyone's just winging it, but I highly doubt it. But it was definitely very freeing for me when I realized that I can make a sketch. It's okay. I'm allowed to make a sketch.
Totally. And I think that that's a lot of times what we can easily miss, myself included, because it's so easy to just work digitally. But I've found that more often than not, I end up diving in with like whatever I think my final brush is going to be, and I think my final colors are going to be. And then I just end up treating those as like the first draft, the second draft, and I just like layer on top of it. But it would be so much easier if it wasn't already in all of those thick, bold brushes, if it was just a sketch instead, because you don't know how many edits you're going to want to make. And it's just nice to have a literal working layer.
Yeah, totally. I just find it very scary, even something like this, where, you're really doing this just to relax, and it's okay, the final thing does not have to look balanced or perfect or any of that. So you can totally get away with not doing a sketch. But again, it's for me, this is more relaxing, just knowing that, there's a layer where I can just figure things out. So I like to do it. And in the end, if you end up with a result that you're happy with, then, all the more better. Yes, it's about the journey, but if you can get to a good destination, why not, right? So,
yeah. And then someone said also interesting to see how you turn the canvas to get a more comfortable drawing angle. I can't recommend that enough. It is so helpful. In fact, have you noticed that when you are, especially with recording, because you're so used to having like the ability to do that, but when you're recording like analog art, it will skew everything. So you're like, okay, wait, don't turn it, don't turn it.
Yeah, totally. But recently I discovered that if I'm on like a side angle camera and not like top face, it's actually good because it looks like you have multiple camera angles because you're turning the page around. So
That's
it kind of
very
helps.
true. Yeah.
So now I just take advantage of my tendencies. All right, we're almost there. Now I don't know what to do with the stem of this. Let's see. Maybe like that. Then we can squeeze in the leaf here. Okay, this one. Also a nice big leaf. Yeah. Okay, so that's all of our, okay, we can do a lot more fillers. We can actually, there's a nice triangular space here. We can do just a filler here, just like that. Even here. So just look, right now what we're doing is we're just looking for those bigger bald spots that we can potentially fill up with just a bunch of fillers. Just like that. It doesn't have to always be 2. We can do 3, we can do 1. Okay. Yeah, the more I look at it, the more I'm gonna keep finding these spots to fill up, which is, I mean, that is part of our aim, is to fill it up. So the reason I put this square on a separate layer is I like to keep like turning it off and on to check. So I'll just turn it off to see if I can see that square being formed by my botanical elements. And it like on this side, I think it's kind of there. I can see the corners, but over here and here, I have some gaps. So it's good to know that those are the things we can fill up. So the next thing I like to do is add some lines, like some curvy lines, just following the shapes of the elements that I've already drawn. So this does two things. It fills up these bald spots and it adds some movement and dynamics to my flowers. So it just brings in some energy. So just like that over here, I'm going to do one. Okay, so just look for spaces, look for opportunities where there are nice, pretty curves. Like this is a nice curve and there is some space next to it. So I'm going to just do one of these over here. And in bigger spaces like this, you can also go in and do a little spiral. So that's one way to fill up spaces like that. You can do spirals, you can do, you know, whatever shapes you feel like doing. So there's a nice big space here. So I'm going to do a nice big spiral here. There you go. It just adds more fun and energy to the piece, while also being functional in, you know, filling up these spaces.
I think it's great that you have so many resources on these types of things, because even now, I feel like it's hard to determine, like, okay, well, what's going to fill this spot? And then my lines all end up looking like almost just like, you know how a thought bubble is, how it's just really like those types of lines. And I just end up doing like a huge curve and then a point and a huge curve and a point. And it's like, what is happening here? But these filler elements really do exactly what you said. They bring so much energy in. But I feel like that can be hard, even harder. I'm like, well, what do I put in here? Like dots, you know?
Yeah, sometimes it can look too forced in some cases. I feel like maybe here it looks weird. But there's also another level. I like to put spots in all of my artwork. There's going to be some kind of loose spots hanging around. So
Yeah,
that's our last dot. Wherever you know, you don't know what to do, just put a dot.
totally.
Simple.
I feel that too.
So yeah, I like to put these like dots in different sizes, and they're really helpful to make this square feel like a square too. It's funny how we use dots to make a square look like a square. So yeah, now I'm just doing some dots in different sizes. You can do 2, 3, whatever. I'm not thinking too much. I'm just trying to fill up the space with whatever I feel works. You know, there could be a space where a spiral works, a bunch of dots will work too, and it's totally up to you. There's no right or wrong. There's no right formula. But just having this system where you lay down the flowers, the biggest things first, the flowers, and then a stem will help us decide where to put the leaves. So, you know, that's how you build this sort of puzzle up. And then finally the fillers. So it gives you sort of a system to work in. So again, you're just getting rid of the extra stress from your brain and trying to create something. Okay. Sometimes I tend to overdo the dots, which is fine. And probably make the brush a little bit bigger so that we can get these dots done faster. I think we can do a spiral here. So I go back and forth if, I'm doing dots and I see a place where I can use something else, just go ahead and do that. And even, as you're doing this, the final version of this, you can still add stuff, just because you have a sketch doesn't mean you have to follow it 100%. So let's check without the square. You see how the square is shaping up more and more the more you fill it up, especially towards the edges. So that's what we're doing. Okay, I think I'm going to just remove this reference out of the way. So I think I'm pretty happy with how that's looking so far. So I'm going to go ahead and open a new layer where we will start drawing. And I'm going to put this drawing layer below the sketch layer so that I can, still see the sketch well. I'll turn on the square also just to continue guiding me. I'm going to reduce the opacity of my floral sketch layer. And then I'm going to start drawing. So I have already put a color palette together, so I'm just going to use that. Let's see. Yeah, I'll put the background color later and I'll just start drawing all my elements. I'm going to use, so I like to use a brush like this one, Record Scratch, to do this, because it's, it's to fill up something like this manually by hand. It's like coloring. It's like, just working on an adult coloring book. So, which is nice if meditation and relaxing is your is what you're doing this for. It's really nice because you're taking the time to do the outlines and to fill it in. So if I feel like I'm particularly in the mood to relax, then I'll use a brush like this. I'm just going to note that. But right now, since we have not a lot of time, I'm going to go with a more with this vintage monoline brush, which is not so textured, and it's easy to just fill the color into the shapes, so we don't have to, and I use this not only when I have a time crunch, but when I don't want that textured hand-drawn kind of a feel that much. Sometimes I want just clean lines, then I go with a monoline brush. So I'm going to go with this vintage monoline brush for now. Okay, and I have picked this light pink color. You can go ahead and use whatever colors you want. And the way we're going to work is we're going to use a new layer for every single color. So you can always come back and change the colors later. You're not stuck with these colors. So don't put too much pressure on yourself to be picking the right colors right away. Sometimes you can't visualize how these colors look together. So just pick a color that, speaks to you and go for it. And then whether it looks good together or not, we can figure out in the end. Okay. So I'm just going to follow these lines. And if your plan is to color drop into the shape to fill the color, then make sure you're closing the shape like that. And then you can drop color. So I'm just going to do this to all of these. Okay, we can actually do all of the outlines first. Okay, just making sure they are closed shapes, even though the sketch doesn't have this bit over here. That's okay if it goes wonky. I think it's fine. It adds to the personality of the flowers. But if you don't want it wonky, you can always undo it and do it again. Okay, so one of the things you can do instead of doing this multiple times is tap on this continue refilling and then just do this. So you can fill that entire thing much faster. So I'm going to go ahead and do this layer. So all of the petals of this type of flower, I'm going to do in one go before moving on to the other shapes and the other flowers. Does anyone have any questions that I can probably answer while
I'll phrase something as a question. I was actually in the middle of responding to you. Okay, I don't know who this is. I'm really new, but I don't want to call you out and be like, what's your name? Or who is this? But I will say, so they said color is the hardest thing for me. And I totally get that. So what I was saying is like, it can be so tricky to find a palette that like resonates. And there's so many resources for color, but I was saying like Vinitha in particular is so good with color because somehow you can do something so bright and so happy, but have it be like in your unique, edgy way. So I guess I'm going to phrase this as, oh, I know. The drop color function changed. So you guys on the new update, and I'm going to ask Vinitha the color question in a sec, but on the new update, if you do color drop on the top of the screen, it'll give you the option to continue filling. And then you just click that. And then all you have to do is just tap and then you can use the threshold the same way that you would. So if it's like not filling an area well enough, you just tap and drag, and it's awesome because it makes things so much faster. Anyway, Vinitha, I would love to hear your thoughts on color since you're so good at color.
So I wish I had like a go-to like formula to do this, but really I feel like I just work.
You're good at pairing color. Like that's your thing. You're really good at like composing a palette, like a unique specific palette, and have it still be colorful, because I know a lot of people like colorful and I'm over here like, stick to analogous palettes, you'll love them, but that's not everyone's jam,
Yeah, I don't know. I somehow just really like colorful, and it's interesting how I got into this kind of a color palette. I was like, if I'm picking clothes for myself, for instance, I would never, I mean, I don't generally tend to pick something like red or something super like primary color type thing. But when I draw somehow, it just ended up being like that way, and I think a big part of that is these are the red, yellow, blue, orange, green. These sort of colors were the colors of my living room when I started iPad illustration. And it was, and the space that I'm in really sort of kind of impacted the color choices that I was making. And then I started loving putting those colors together. And I mean, to be fair, I am the one who picked the colors of the living room, but that was again based on a bunch of patterns that I had chosen for the curtains and, all the upholstery. So, but then somehow that trickled into my work and it stuck. I was always like, scared of being, or like I found it boring to be like sticking to just one color palette. I see artists who do that, and that's, I mean, I love looking at it, but as a person creating it, I feel like I would be easily bored if I was just, sticking to just one color palette. But then I felt this pressure to keep my feed looking cohesive. So I felt like I have to find a color palette, a go-to color palette, and this was like sort of my solution. So I don't do all of my artwork in the exact same colors, but I do have a bunch of go-to colors that I know work well next to each other. And I guess I've experimented with the tones and things to find a nice pink that will look nice next to a red, that sort of thing. Oh, sorry. So I've opened up a new layer and done the yellow bits over here, and yet another new layer to do the stems and the leaves. So we're in the stem and leaf layer right now. Yeah. So I don't have a specific color process as such. One thing that helps though is to check contrast. So I like to turn my artwork into
Totally. Sorry. I'm like, oh yeah. Actually, since you say that, do you have a quick tip on how to change to grayscale? Like quickly without, like, how would you do that?
So what I do,
there's this, sorry, I'm gonna stop.
okay, I'm gonna show this quickly and then we'll see what you were gonna say.
Okay.
So I just find a black, I just put a new layer right on top of all the layers. Usually I do this once I'm done with everything, and then I drop in black in the entire layer, and then I change the blend mode to saturation.
Wow. That's so smart. I did not know that was a thing. Like, I didn't think about that. That's so smart.
So you can keep like checking this on and off. So once that is set up, you can keep checking that and then making adjustments as you go if you feel like, there's not enough contrast. So that's very useful. So that is one straightforward tip that I can give you besides, oh, it's just my intuition.
Honestly, though, like I live for these types of tips. Like it can be the smallest thing and my mind is just blown. Like I know how to do it on the iPad, but you have to go into accessibility and it's like under so accessibility and there's like grayscale and I think that's under vision. But anyway, that's just like so much to have to do and then go back into the program. So this is great. I'm living for this tip.
Yeah, I haven't actually tried any other way to do this yet. So I don't know what the accessibility thing you're talking about. I should probably check that out because sometimes these things, even though they achieve the same thing, it's grayscale what we're trying to achieve, but sometimes they are useful in other ways, just like how alpha log or what do you call it?
Yeah, versus clipping masks.
Clipping mask. Yeah. That's the thing, in the end result, but there's different ways of using it. There are times there's no direct right or wrong way to use it. So yeah, that's interesting. I'm gonna look at this accessibility.
Yeah, and even if like if you're using a program that isn't Procreate too, like and doesn't have a quick blend mode option. Oh man, I'm so happy that you shared that. This is great. Like, those little nuggets that you're just going to dwell on. This is mine for the day.
Yeah. I actually picked it up from somewhere else. I don't think I came up with it. I saw somebody else do it.
That's how we learn. You guys, I'm going to pop in a video that you can watch after this that has before I do that, I'm going to find the actual handout, but basically it's a color palette. It's a color palette download that you can just import into Procreate, and then you can, what am I saying? I walk you through like setting up a unique color palette according to like color harmonies based off of only one color. So I'll pop that in the chat. I just have to find, I don't know why the one I found doesn't have the download, but I'm going to find it in a minute and pop that in.
That sounds exciting.
It's one of my favorite activities.
Yeah, I feel like this is not something you have to keep doing. Once you sort of find the colors that click with you.
Totally, yeah.
And try different ways to combine them. You don't have to always do pink and green and yellow. You can do green and yellow or red and pink, just if you have found those specific values that you like, you can just mess around with them later. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually changing the size of the brush. I like to keep my main stem a little bit thicker than the leaves. So, when I do the smaller branches, I reduce the size of the brush a little bit. You can actually set this up. So if you find two sizes that you like, you can just click on this plus icon over here and fix those. So you don't have to, figure it out each time. You can just jump between these two. So that's a helpful time saver tool. Okay, so I think that's all the main leaves done. Now the little stems of the filler elements, I want to make them even smaller. So I'm going to do those now.
Another thing that I've noticed for my own work, because I know that like some of us love a flat color and some of us love, or we love both, but some of us also love putting texture in and whatnot. And I'm not like a huge fan of realistic depth, but I love like a textured shading for depth. And even if it's just of a certain hue or a certain value of a color, even when I just add like on one side of a shape, let's say some texture that's just in that same color family, I end up liking my color palette more, I find. So that's just like my personal preference. So some of us might feel like, oh, we hate what we've chosen, but maybe it just means that we have an opportunity to add something,
Right, yeah, you don't even have to introduce a new color. It could just be a different value that's adding some shading or texture.
Yeah.
That makes it. I'm finding myself moving away from the crisp, clean lines and flat colors to more textured, more I like to add a little bit of texture and shading now. I'm experimenting with that and I'm really enjoying that. And I found this vintage texture kit to be very useful for that.
Oh, good.
Yeah, very nice versatile brushes that's helping me create shading. Sometimes when I do shading, I feel like it looks a little tacky and not modern enough. And I'm able to create stuff that still feels modern to me and feels current with this brush pack. So love it.
Good. I'm so glad. I feel that way too. And I like, it's like just enough. It's not overwhelming. It's not too rough, but it's just one of those things that, yeah, what you said.
I think for these flowers, I'm going to go with a bunch of yellows and oranges for these guys. So let's see, maybe I'll go with yellow for the main body. So I've opened up a new layer. And for this, I'm actually going to start with the back surface. Okay, the back surface. And then we're going to use the clipping mask to save some time. So for the back surface, I think I'm going to use this. Back to a bigger brush. So right now what we're doing is we're just laying down the base colors. We can come back to them and add more details or texture or shading if we need to, but I'm just doing the base colors now just to get a feel of how everything's looking. So I'm doing this entire shape right now so that I don't have to draw the shape again, because we have clipping masks, and clipping masks are my best friend on Procreate. I love using clipping masks.
I second that.
Yeah, it's really the best. It's, I think, the main reason why I like to draw on Procreate, because it keeps everything so nice and clean and editable. So that's great. Right, so I have this shape down. Now what I'm going to do is open a new layer directly above this layer that we just did. And then tap on this layer and click on clipping mask. So what that does is it locks off all the pixels in the rest of this layer, except the ones that are directly above whatever is already on this layer. So if that doesn't make sense, you'll see soon what I'm talking about. So I've picked a different color, and now I'm going to draw the front face. So this time, because I have clipping mask turned on, even if I draw here, it doesn't show up. It shows up only when I draw directly above the shape that's under it. So this is so useful. So this way, I just need to draw this outline, and then I don't need to try and trace over this and get that shape. I can just go like that and close the shape. And that's it. So that gives us the front face with like not a lot of careful effort, which I love. So I'm just closing. So you can sometimes forget it looks like a closed shape, but if you go in here, you can see that this is just a line. It's not a closed shape. So we need to connect this end to this end and fill it in. So now we have two blobs. Okay, so that's done. And now for the part in between, I'm going to open up a layer in between these two layers. And since this is already a clipping mask layer, this one's also automatically going to be a clipping mask layer. And I don't know, maybe make it white. Let's try. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, again, I'm closing the shape. It doesn't matter how you close the shape because you're not going to see that side of this. So you can go like that if you want, and that's okay. Okay. So that's also done. Now we'll do our fillers. At this point, we have the smaller elements, and I feel like I need to have an idea of what the background is going to be. Is it a lighter color or a darker color? It will help me decide on how I want the fillers and the little squiggles and lines to be. Do I want them to be dark, light? Of course, we can change it at a later point, but I think this is a good time to decide on the background. So I love using darker backgrounds, lighter artwork on darker backgrounds. So I think I'm going to do that. Now I realize I can't see my sketch layer so well. Okay, so just okay, so this is opportunity to show you another way, another quick tip. So if I want to change the color of everything on one layer, now in this case, I have this layer full of sketches. It would be impossible for me to drag and drop the color into it. So what I do is I tap on the layer, turn on alpha lock, and then I pick the new color that I want. I'm gonna pick a lighter blue so that I can see it. And then I pick that lighter blue and then go back here and do fill layer. So that way everything on that layer is now a lighter blue and I can see it. So this is really fast. This is my way of changing colors once I have a bunch of things already on a layer.
Vinitha, I have a question. Do you ever use the Recolor tool?
What is the Recolor tool?
Oh my gosh, I'm going to blow your mind. Are you ready for this? Don't hate me for doing this to you, but if you can teach me something, I can teach you something, okay?
So,
okay,
go for it.
Okay, so the Recolor tool used to be in Procreate very accessible, and now it's hidden, but you can easily get it back. So do you use your quick menu?
Not a lot. I tried and then I realized I'm just like going into the quick menu without intending to go in.
So I never used quick menu until I found that Recolor was in fact not gone. So are you able to enable your quick menu? And I'll show you exactly how to use Recolor and you are going to love it.
How do I do that?
So go to
Is it in Trip?
preferences. Yeah. And gesture controls, I think, is where it is. Does it say that somewhere? Yeah. And then go to quick menu and just figure out what your current setting is to turn it on.
Okay. Apple Pencil while holding this. Okay, got it.
So you're going to like that I'm doing this to you. Okay. So just hold down any of those squares or rectangles, any of them. And choose, go to Recolor.
Yes.
Okay, now select the Recolor. What you just did, just don't hold down. Okay, so you should see a little, yep. And then put it over wherever you want it. And it has a flood at the bottom, which is like your threshold, like the color threshold. Okay. And wherever that tiny cross is, it will act like color fill, basically. So if you have it on any layer, let's say it was on all those dots and you have it, but go to your color real fast, your color wheel, and just choose the color, anything you want.
Okay.
And you can keep going.
Wow.
Oh wait, now you undid it. But so basically you can choose and like choose your color live. So you can have it be on whatever you want it to be on, and then go to your colors.
That's exciting. Huh.
And then, yeah, and then you can actually like move around the color wheel and see all the colors change in live time.
Wow, that's exciting.
Like color drop, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna mess around with that. That sounds like fun.
It was like, so for those who have used Recolor in the past, and it was like the worst news in the world when it was just gone. And then when we found that it was still there, it's like, oh my gosh, this is the best news in the world. And so thank you for letting me share it with you, but I get so excited about Recolor.
That is definitely a great tip that I'm excited to try out.
Okay,
Wow.
2 questions. What brush are you currently using, and would you be able to explain clipping masks?
Sure. The brush I'm currently using is the vintage monoline, still on that. I'm just using different sizes of it. Clipping mask. Yes. So what clipping mask does is, maybe I'll open up a new this thing to explain this. So let's say you have a layer over here, and then I'm going to open up a new layer directly above that. And I don't have clipping mask turned on as of now, but I'm going to use a different color and just draw a bunch of things on this layer. Okay, just like that. And I'm going to enclose it just to have something to show you. Okay, and I've filled that. So this is what it looks like if there is no clipping mask. But now I'm going to go in here and turn on clipping mask, and then it just removes everything that is not directly above what's in this layer. So it just sort of clips everything in this layer to the layer that's directly below it. And you can add more layers above it, add clipping mask, and do more things, and it will still happen within the shape of that original layer that you drew.
Clipping mask is the best.
That is what clipping mask is, and by extension, alpha lock. So instead of this, if we had alpha lock, you can just go to this layer and turn on alpha lock. What it does, instead of applying this clipping or locking off the rest of it to another layer that is above it, it applies it to this layer. So you can, draw stuff in the same layer and it will get clipped. So, which is helpful in certain cases, but it doesn't, the main problem of that is that then you can't go in and edit these colors separately. Then there's pink and yellow, both. See, So when I drop color, it fills into the entire thing instead of filling in just the yellow parts. So it's not as editable as clipping mask, but every time you do a clipping mask, you're adding a new layer. So if you don't have a lot of layers to work with, then clipping mask can be a problem. I hope that's, clipping mask can be complicated, but I hope I managed to explain the concept behind it.
Yeah, I think so.
So yeah, coming back to this, I'm just going to fill in these colors, these little dots. I don't know why I'm not using this continue fill. Where's my little dot? There. So yes, I always find that I've missed out on some small part. I think I've covered all the leaves or all the buds, but then when I'm doing something else, I'll see I haven't, which is okay. See, we're running out of time. Can we like go a little bit over? Is that okay?
Yeah, I always buffer these because I love lives. They're my favorites. So you have as much time as you want.
So I think, yeah, this also basically works like Recolor, doesn't it? It has the flood and
yeah,
interesting. And the little cross.
But the thing, the difference is you'll be able to go into your color palette and
see on the fly. Yeah, that's really cool.
That's the game changer on this one.
Absolutely. That sounds like a dream.
I know.
Okay, so I'm going to pick another color. Okay, that's where all my colors have gone. I was wondering what happened to all the colors. Okay, I'm just picking random colors now. Okay, so the next one I'm doing is all these lines. I'm still using the same brush. Actually, we can use a different brush. I like to use this one called Diamond Liner. I like that for these kind of lines. They look nice and flowy and wispy when I do it with them. So that's what I'll do this with. And as you can see, I'm constantly rotating my canvas because these kind of curves, I'm most comfortable when I'm drawing the curves in that direction versus, when the curve curves towards me, I mess it up. So I keep turning the canvas so that I have a good, comfortable angle. So like this, for instance. So are folks who are joining in live actually doing this? Do you find it okay to follow along? Are you able to do this along with me?
Yeah, let us know. The chat got pretty quiet, so I'm assuming that there is a draw along happening.
That's nice.
And if there is, I'm curious because I love color. What colors are you using?
Yeah, and what what elements from if you're using elements from the reference library that I prepared, I'd love to see. In fact, I would love to see your creations. So definitely share them on Instagram and tag the both of us so we can see what you did.
Yes.
Actually, I'll take this opportunity to announce something very exciting. So we want to do a giveaway of this brush set. So this entire vintage texture Procreate kit to one lucky winner. So actually, if you post your project from this live session, you don't have to have done it live. You can do it at your own pace, but if you can post it, on Instagram and tag the both of us, you'll be entered into the giveaway and we'll pick one lucky winner. I will post all about it on Instagram. You'll have about a week to do this, but I'll give you like more specific details soon. But yay, this is a very fun and versatile brush kit to have, like I said. So I would love for you to experience that.
Yeah, so it also comes, just so people know, it comes with a bunch of brushes, but it also comes with vintage canvases if you want that kind of like, I guess, I can't think of a word right now, vintage, I guess, effect to your canvases. So you can create art and then drop them into one of those canvases for that, just to have an instant result. And then it also comes with a bunch of color palettes.
Right, yes. So if you're struggling with color, there's one way to,
I mean, I will say that they are quite vintagey. So just know that. But yes.
Right, so now I'm on a new layer and I'm using this record scratch, which is probably my favorite brush from this entire pack, this and vintage monoline. So I'm just using this to do my little spots. Wow. Yeah. I'm not trying to make them perfect or, circles, perfect circles at all. I'm just going for it.
Donna said she's definitely drawing along and using a vintage floral color palette. Love that. Oh, I can't wait to see that one. I love vintage. Yeah. Yeah. A couple of people are not drawing along, but they will later, which I love. Heidi said she took your class on Skillshare, loves your style.
Hey, thank you, Heidi. Oh, so that reminds me. So if you want to learn in detail how I make these flowers, so how I come up with all of these flowers, I came up with from actual references of real flower, photographs of real flowers. So you can, if you want to learn how you can take a real flower and simplify it into these kind of shapes, my Procreate floral illustration class on Skillshare is a deep dive into this. So check it out. I believe there's a link for that also in the description.
Brenda's asking a question about the vintage canvases, and it's great. It's it's obviously personal preference, but I do not work on those canvases. I know that can be tricky because it's like, well, I don't know how the colors are going to render with all the blend modes and whatnot once I drop it in, but I still just like to have I just like to work on, a fresh art piece as it is, and then I'll drop it in, and it's just kind of like a bonus when I see the effects.
Yeah, it's always exciting. So I've also made a bunch of things. I've actually done both. I've done straight up started working on the pre-made canvases. Sometimes I just drop it into as the surprise element of dropping it and then seeing what it looks like is actually pretty fun. So what I'm doing now is I have I opened up a new layer above this light pink layer, and I'm just adding some dimension to one side of each of these petals, just to make just so they're not all blending into each other and you can actually see them as defined shapes, as opposed to how over here they're just one big blob. So that's what I'm trying to do now. I'll keep the sketch layer on so I can see where my petals end. So this way there's another color from the same color family. Like Peggy said, we're sticking to the same sort of pink, but just higher value to make the color palette more interesting and give some definition to our petals.
Yeah, it really does. It can make all the difference when that is just like those simple additions.
Yeah. And instead, like, you don't have to do realistic shading, you know, you can use shading in these kind of ways too. And you'll still get some definition and cool effects. Okay. One more.
Margaret's asking, what is the DPI of this 10 by 10 canvas? So many layers.
Yeah, I'm 300 dpi is what I use standard. I have the 2 TB iPad, which I think does not really affect, but it's the highest spec. So I'm spoiled with a lot of layers, which I love because I use a lot of clipping masks. But if you're struggling with layers, you can, duplicate the canvas and merge some of the layers down, and then you'll get some more layers, which is not, as convenient as not doing that, but it's a nice workaround.
The reason why you would duplicate the canvas too is just so that you can work indestructibly, and that way you do have a canvas that still has layers separated.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit of shading to these yellow bits, and I'll use something like dustpan maybe. So again, I'm on a new layer directly above this yellow layer, and I have clipping mask turned on, so I don't need to worry about. So clipping mask is so useful for shading because I don't need to worry about sticking within the lines at all. I just need to go ahead and shade. So I am drawing outside of the shape, but it doesn't show up thanks to clipping mask. It shows up only where I want it to show up. That's kind of like magic. I love these textured brushes to add some nice grainy shading. So I'm just using full pressure towards the sides where I want it to be more dark. And as I'm blending it into the yellow, I'm using much lighter pressure to create like a gradient.
It looks so good just with that.
I know the gradients in these textures just bring it to life, don't they? I think I'll do some over here too, above this yellow layer. Clipping mask again with the same color. So just like that. And I like to, I'm sure you've noticed that I like to keep like zooming in and out to see the bigger picture. You can actually use that canvas reference window to have a full version of your entire canvas visible at all times too, if you want. But I just don't like anything in my way. So I just do this. Cool. And I also add a little bit of shading on the leaves. So I have a new layer opened up above the leaf layer. And I'm going to do a lighter green. And again, the same dustpan brush will work here also. I'll just go bigger and then just make the tips light up. All of this is just possible because of flipping mask. Okay, can't stop talking about flipping mask.
I totally feel the same way every time.
Yeah, I'm always blown away. I don't think I'll ever stop being blown away. Right. So you can leave it there and call it done. Or I like to do one extra thing. When I'm doing my leaves like this, I like to have that, you know, if you remove the sketch layer, you won't see the middle, the veins of the leaves. And I like to have that little extra dimension. So I'll just do one more layer above this, add clipping mask, and I'll take whatever the background color is and use some kind of liner brush like the diamond liner and just draw the vein from here. Okay, just like that. Oops. And just let it, you know, I don't take it all the way to the end. I just make it like wispy, which is why this diamond liner is great for this, because it gives a nice wispy tip. It's almost like you're cutting into the leaf because you're using the same color as the background. So just remember, if you decide to change the background color, just remember to also change the color of this layer. Yes, that's all of them.
It looks so good.
Yay.
Gosh,
Get rid
it's
of all
so
the
fun to
layers.
watch it from beginning to end.
Yay. But I feel like the whites are a bit like standing out in these cases, and it's bothering me that there's none of that happening here. So I don't know. Do you think I should make it pink? Maybe what I'm gonna do is make.
Let's try it.
So I'm gonna again do the alpha log and fill there to make it pink. No, I think the white was better. Not enough contrast. So let's go back to our contrast saturation there to check. And we can see there's not that much contrast between this pink and you know, the dark yellow behind it. So probably not a good idea. Let's see what happens if it's still white. And
I
now
like
we
it.
turn on. So much more contrast. Yeah, I think I'm gonna stick to that. But I think another way to bring in some white, balance out the white in the canvas is maybe I'm gonna change all of my little buds to white. Where are they? So against this dark background, it's gonna have enough contrast also. Yes, I like that. Cool. So that's it. We're done.
Beautiful.
I think.
Vinitha, this is so fun. Thank you so much for going through everything with us. And you guys don't forget to share and tag us, the Pigeon Letters and Vinitha Mammen. I'll make sure, I think it is in the description, but I'll just make sure all the links that you need are down there. And yes, it will be available to rewatch at this same link. It's not going anywhere. And if you share within this week, then you could win this entire brush pack.
Yes, do it. Like totally share it. I mean, I would love to see what you create. I cannot wait. So ulterior motive in there too, but totally like getting this brush pack is gonna be good for you. I just wanted to quickly show a couple of other just you know, different things that you can do with it. So just a minute. Just go ahead. show you. So some of the other floral doodles I've done with different shapes and color palettes. In this case, also I follow the exact same idea of just doing 2 flowers, 1 leaf, and 1 filler. I didn't even do the dynamic lines in this case. I just stuck to spots for the additional fillers.
I love those. See, I love an analogous palette though. That one's so pretty too, though. Gosh, you're just really good at color.
This is the same color palette that we worked on today, and I fell in love with it when I created this one. So I thought this is what I'm going to teach you guys with. So in this case, I went a little bit more intricate. So you can do whatever you want with the leaves, once the basic shape is done, you can add holes to it, lines to it. You can make it 2 different colors on either side. There's so many things you can, experiment with. So as you do this, try out different things and see where it takes you. You'll soon find what you love. This is one of the first ones that I did. In this case, I didn't stick to just 1 flower or 1 leaf. I did everything. I did different types of flowers, different types of leaves, fillers, everything. And I think what helps to not make this look like too chaotic is that I stuck to a very limited color palette. So, if you're experimenting with different shapes, then it's best to stick to fewer colors. And this way you have to use your brain a bit more as you're drawing, but it could be another thing you can explore. And so this is doodling with symmetry turned on. So I just had to do this one side and the other side just happened. So this is from my symmetry masterclass on Skillshare. So again, the same principles, but we're just using symmetry in this case.
Yeah, so that's another thing. I believe we have your class linked in the description too. So if you guys want to play some more, definitely watch her class on Skillshare because she's an incredible teacher.
Thank you. And this is another thing you can explore. Instead of a square, you can do a circle. You can go even more ambitious and do letters. So it's the same principle. You're filling in shapes, right? So you can take it even further. You can do a lot of fun stuff with this basic floral doodling.
So pretty. Thank you so much. I just want to give you some praise from people in the chat here. Margaret said, blown away, learned so much. Thank you. Layla said, thanks for all the tips. A lot of people said, thank you. Allison said, loved your presentation. I need to practice clipping and alpha lock more to get up to speed. And as we all do, of course. And then Margaret has a great point of, I'm seeing these designs in thread, embroidery, and linen, which I bet that would be beautiful.
Thank you so much, guys, for joining in and for making me feel so special. Yay, I'm so glad you got to learn something. I hope I wasn't going too fast, or I hope you've, learned something from it. And just I've ignited some kind of a spark for you to try stuff out. If I've done that, I'm going to be happy.
Yes. Thank you so much, Vinitha, for your time and sharing your talent. And we will see everybody later.
And thank you, Peggy, for hosting this.
Thank you. I'm just hanging out, being odd. All right. Bye, everybody.